So episode 2, they leave with Eric Bischoff riding off into the sunset, heading to the mountains of Wyoming or back to his ranch or whatever. He's going fishing, folks, because Harvey Schiller has fired his ass. Not because WCW executives were out to get him and that they wanted to kill WCW. They fired him because WCW was losing shitloads of money.
He wrote a giant check to Kiss for no reason.
Yes. Yeah. So that's why he got fired. And in this episode, Vince Russo comes out. Vince Russo has said he wants to leave WWF because WWF has added SmackDown a second show because they want to compete with Thunder. And they said, hey, we want you to write this show, but we're not going to pay you any extra money for it. And I'm on Vince Russo's side. He said, go piss up a rope. And he said, I'm leaving. And then he was able to finagle his way over into WCW and get a fucking big time paying gig as the head of creative over there. Vince Russo also in this episode claims that he had a hand in Eric Bischoff getting fired. And Vince, I'd love to give you credit for that, but Eric Bischoff is the one that gets all the credit for that one. You had nothing to do with that, buddy.
Boy, Vince Russo, I mean, he'll tell you he was something to do with everything. Like, he is convinced he was actually in the control room when the Apollo 11 landed on the moon. He'll tell you that he was the second gunman on the grassy knoll. Like, he'll tell you about that. Like, he loves just to take credit for shit. Like, success has how many fathers, Mike?
100.
Vince Russo.
Yeah, Vince Russo is the daddy of all success.
That's one.
And has never had a bad idea. And that was the thing on this episode. It was one bad idea being presented after another, and then him trying to justify it. Just crappy idea after crappy idea after crappy idea. So the guy comes in, and then he didn't immediately put himself on TV, but his face wasn't being shown, but he automatically became a character on the show pretty quickly when he was doing the creative control gimmick. I think wasn't it with the Harris brothers?
The Harris brothers and the powers that be. He's basically Dr. Claw for my 80s fans. He's basically doing Dr. Claw from Inspector Gadget.
Yeah. So he was on the show very quickly. They did that whole horrendous tournament that they were doing because they got they held the titles up. I think they held the title up after I think Goldberg and Sid main evented Halloween Havoc 99. I just remember liking that match because it was bloody. I can't really remember. And then they did this big tournament that was going to end in Toronto and with Bret Hart versus Chris Benoit, which was I found to be a really good match. But
that is a good match actually.
Yeah, but then after that it was like all downhill. He ends up getting shit canned like a month or two later
because he was bad at his job.
Yeah, well he was saying that the ratings went up. They really didn't.
They didn't go up. He says that.
They had. I'm sure they had some peaks, but the show was so trashy. They couldn't sell commercial time, and that's what Brad Siegel was saying. It's like, yeah, maybe the ratings went up a little bit, but we couldn't sell ads because it was so trashy.
He cut the show in a third. They took the show from 3 hours and they cut it in half. And he said, look, the ratings went up. And it's like, yeah, because you went unopposed and it didn't go up. You made them less money.
Yes.
Because you had less time.
All he cared about was the ratings points, right? Guess what the TV execs care about? Ad revenue. And even if the ratings did go up a little bit, they got less money for it. So it didn't fucking matter. And then on top of that, they quit selling pay-per-views.
And tickets.
Yeah.
Ticket sales went down. Pay-per-view revenue went down. He's like, well, I was the TV writer, bro. I just want to... No, you are not just the TV writer. Your job is to direct the show. You didn't do a good job directing the show. You made it worse. You made less people watch.
Yeah.
Dork.
Yeah, people quit coming to the arenas. He thinks his only job was to get ratings, but no, your job is to ratings are important. Ad revenue is more important. Ticket sales are important, and pay-per-view sales are important. All of them are important. You can't forego the other stuff to focus on this one metric. All the metrics are important. Right? Merchandise sales are important. Video game sales are important. He was foregoing all that other stuff because all he cared about was getting buzz attention and ratings points.
But they didn't go up. Like, that's the whole thing. Yeah. It's like, he says that. It's like, I'm going to tell people I'm 6'3". Like, I'm 5'9", but I'm going to keep telling people I'm 6'3". And if I just keep saying it, eventually someone's going to actually see me and go, well, of course JD's 6'3". He says it all the time.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. And so one of the things that Meltzer wrote in the Observer last week, which I thought was pretty profound. He said, people are pointing the finger at Vince Russo for killing WCW. and he did not. He just was unable to save it. He was brought in to save the company because he had sold himself as being the genius behind the WWF boom when he really wasn't. He was like an offensive coordinator calling some plays, and then the head coach made the ultimate calls, which was Vince McMahon.
He's a Patriots offensive coordinator. How many
Yeah.
Patriots OCs got head coaching jobs and didn't do jack shit?
Literally all of them, like
Mhm.
Bill O'Brien, Josh McDaniels, Charlie Weiss. Like I think there might Matt Patricia.
Yep.
Yeah, I think there might be a couple more, but
Sure.
in their defensive coordinators, none of them have done anything either. Like it was all, it was Belichick and Brady.
Tom
And
Brady.
with the Attitude Era, it was Vince, it was Stone Cold, and it was The Rock.
Mm-hmm.
That's who got the Attitude Era over.
It's amazing how successful you can be when you're working with Hall of Fame level talent.
Yeah. And I guarantee you, Stone Cold and The Rock called bullshit on a lot of Vince Russo's ideas. Because if you don't think, they also had some type of creative control, not total, but they had some type. If you said something to Stone Cold and he didn't want to do it, he'd tell you to go eat shit. And same with The Rock, right?
Very, very famously, Steve Austin, if he didn't like what you told him to do, he told you to eat shit.
Yeah. So you had to bring good ideas. But when Vince Russo comes over to WCW, he's got autonomy. And nobody can say no. And the people that could say no, like the veterans, were kind of ostracized and kind of pushed out. Those guys that would want to say no, which led us to the stuff that happened in 2000. So anyway, by the beginning of 2000, he's gone, and then Kevin Sullivan comes back and takes over as the booker. And Kevin Sullivan had a little bit of success a couple years prior to that, but a lot of that had to do with the NWO and all that stuff.
He was the booker of the NWO. So I mean, like that's the thing. We talk about this, success having 100 fathers. Yeah, I got it. Like you could give Kevin Sullivan is the guy that actually put those shows together. Kevin Sullivan is responsible for the rise in tickets, for the rise in the house show business, which happened before the NWO. That was the Ric Flair, Randy Savage feud in the spring of '96.
You know what? That is a very underrated feud, by the way. And I think more people should talk about that. I thought that feud was great.
It's the better feud. Like it's way better. They had a long, Savage and Flair have a long feud in WWF in '92. Yeah. And it's pretty solid. It's for the time, it's fine. Their 96 feud was way better because it was about how much of a broken man Savage was. Like Flair literally does take Liz from him.
Yes.
Like, and how he's left with nothing. And like it reignited WCW's house show business because nobody else is working house shows except for your workhorses, your quality, guys, Savage and Flair. Those guys went around the horn, and that was what got WCW. Nobody talks about this because it's cute to say Eric Bischoff and it's cute to say the NWO and Hall and Nash. What turned around their business, and this is true, what turned around WCW's ticket selling business was Flair and Savage, booked by Kevin Sullivan. And Kevin Sullivan's not a great guy either, by any stretch of the imagination, but he deserves some credit for turning around the business as well. If we're going to give it to Eric Bischoff, we got to give it to Kevin Sullivan too.